Have you ever sat at the edge of your bed, staring out the window, wondering when the last real conversation with your son or daughter happened? Not just the usual, "How are you?" or "Did you take your meds?" kind of chat. I mean the deep heart-to-heart one where you felt truly heard, not like you were just being managed like a calendar appointment. It's a strange place to be, isn't it? You've spent decades raising these kids, patching up scraped knees, cheering at school functions, staying up through feverish nights, and now that they're grown with kids of their own, suddenly it feels like you're walking on eggshells just to say, "I need a little help." But let's be real for a moment. It's not always their fault. Life moves fast. They've got mortgages, meetings, messes to clean up, and mental loads you might not see. Still, your needs matter, your voice matters, and asking for help shouldn't feel like an act of war. So today, let's talk. Just you and me. Let's talk about how to talk to your adult children about your needs, your concerns, your wishes, and yes, your boundaries too. Because aging doesn't mean silence. It means growing wiser about how we communicate what really matters. Now, if you're feeling a little nervous about even starting that conversation, you're not alone. Many people over 60 feel exactly the same way. There's this fear that speaking up will make you seem needy or worse, a burden. But let me offer you a different way to think about it. Clarity is a gift, not just to yourself, but to your children too. When they know where you stand, what you need, and how they can actually help, you're not putting pressure on them, you're giving them direction. So, let's ease into this the right way. One of the most powerful things you can do is choose the right moment. Now, this may sound basic, but timing truly is everything. Picture this. Your daughter just got off a 9-hour shift. Her toddler is screaming in the back seat, and dinner still needs to be made. That's not the time to say, "I've been feeling lonely lately, and I think I might need to move in with someone." It's not that she doesn't care. It's that her emotional bandwidth is fried. Like a phone on 1% battery, she simply can't give you the attention you deserve in that moment. Instead, try bringing it up when things feel a little calmer. Maybe it's over coffee on a Sunday morning or during a walk in the park. When you're both a little more relaxed, the conversation has space to breathe. It's not rushed. It's not reactive. It's simply two adults sharing truths. Another thing to keep in mind, start with connection, not concern. I know you have worries about your health, about being alone, about finances maybe, but if you open with heavy news, it can trigger defensiveness. Instead, begin with something warmer, like, "You know, I've been thinking a lot about how life's changing for all of us lately, and I wanted to talk with you. Not because there's an emergency, but because I value our relationship, and I think it's time we touch base about a few things." See how that feels. It's inviting. It doesn't put them on the defense, and it makes them feel like part of the process, not just recipients of your problems. That brings us to another subtle but mighty shift. Ask for a conversation, not a solution. You don't need to have all the answers figured out before you speak up. In fact, trying to package your needs too tightly can backfire. Your kids might hear your neat little list and think, "Oh, they've got it handled," when in reality, you just want their input. So instead of saying, "I need help with groceries every Tuesday," try, "I've noticed it's getting harder for me to carry groceries up the stairs. I'm not sure what the best fix is, but I'd really love your thoughts." You're not just asking for help, you're inviting partnership. And believe me, that makes a world of difference. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, "But my son isn't the emotional type," or "My daughter is always too busy." That's valid. Every family is different. But even if they don't respond how you wish they would, it doesn't mean they don't care. Sometimes people show love in practical ways. One person might give you a hug and say, "I'm here anytime." Another might install safety bars in your bathroom without a word. The key is to not confuse emotional style with love or lack of it. It's also important to remember that your needs are not negotiable, but your approach can be. If you're feeling isolated or unsafe or overwhelmed, those are real concerns that deserve attention. But if one approach doesn't land, don't give up. Pivot, reframe. Ask again in a different way. This isn't about nagging, it's about advocating. And while we're here, let's talk briefly about boundaries. Just because you're getting older doesn't mean you should put up with being dismissed, Ignored or patronized, you deserve respect. If your children tend to interrupt, speak over you, or roll their eyes when you bring up your needs, say something calmly but clearly. I want to share something important, and I need you to really hear me without jumping in or changing the subject. You're not demanding. You're setting the tone for how you expect to be treated, and believe it or not, sometimes that's all it takes to shift the dynamic. Now, this part's tough, but let's not avoid it. Money and caregiving. These are two areas where most of us hesitate the longest. We don't want to be seen as a financial burden or a ticking time bomb of medical needs. But here's the thing. Not talking about it doesn't make it go away. In fact, it usually makes things more stressful later for everyone. So if you have concerns about bills, about housing, about what happens if you can't drive anymore, start planting those seeds now, not as ultimatums, but as open questions. Have you ever thought about how we might handle things if I can't live alone someday? Or would you be open to talking about a plan for later, just so we're not scrambling if something happens? You're not writing a contract, you're opening a door. And if they seem uncomfortable, that's okay. These are hard topics. Let the conversation breathe. Sometimes saying, "We don't need to figure it all out today, I just want to start the dialogue," can work wonders. It shows them you're thinking ahead, not panicking, not pushing, just preparing. And that, my friend, is one of the wisest gifts you can offer your family. So, you've started the conversation. Maybe you picked the right time. Maybe you led with warmth instead of worry. Maybe you even surprised yourself by how calm and clear you sounded. But now comes the part most people over 60 don't prepare for, the moment after you speak. What do you do when your child responds differently than you hoped? Some will nod and say, "Absolutely, let's work this out." Great, that's the dream. But others might get quiet, or defensive, or even try to brush it off with a quick, "You're fine, Mom. Don't worry so much." That stings, doesn't it? But here's something you need to remember. When people feel uncomfortable, they don't always show it with empathy. They show it with escape. That doesn't mean the door is closed. It just means you've hit a locked room that needs a second key. And guess what? You have that key. It's called consistency with compassion. See, your children may not know how to process the idea of you needing them. It's a role reversal. It makes them feel vulnerable too. But that's okay. That's human. So instead of retreating the moment you sense discomfort, try saying something like, "I know this isn't easy to talk about, and I understand if you need some time to think. Just know that I brought it up because I trust you not to fix everything, but to stand beside me while I figure it out." That line right there, that's the reset button. It shifts the conversation from pressure to partnership. It reminds them that your needs aren't demands. They're an invitation to deeper connection. Now let's dive into something equally important, how you frame your needs. This part is like gold because the way you say something can either open a heart or slam a door shut. For example, instead of saying, "You never call me anymore," which might sound like blame, try saying, "I really enjoy talking to you. It makes my day brighter when we connect, even for just a few minutes." Same point, totally different energy. One makes someone feel guilty. The other makes them feel valued. Framing your needs in a positive light doesn't mean sugarcoating the truth. It means offering your truth in a way that encourages, not corners, the other person. Now, let's say you've done everything right. You chose the time, you framed it well, you stayed calm, and still, the conversation feels like pulling teeth. That's when it's time to lean into one of the most underrated tools in communication, the pause. Pausing doesn't mean giving up. It means giving space. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "Let's take a break and talk about this again soon." Not later, not someday, soon. Keep that door open. Keep the energy alive. You are not a broken record. You are a loving parent planting seeds. And not all seeds bloom the same day. And while we're on the topic of planting, let's talk about something that might surprise you. Vulnerability is strength. I know. We were raised in a generation that said, "Tough it out, don't complain, keep the family running even if your knees are buckling." But here's the twist. The more honest you are about how you're really doing, the more trust you build, especially with adult kids who are often trying to guess how much you're not saying. If you're scared about the future, say so. If you're lonely and miss being part of the chaos of their daily lives, Say that too. Vulnerability doesn't make you weaker. It makes you real, and people connect to real. Now let's touch on a biggie: boundaries in both directions. Yes, you have needs, but so do they. If your daughter works 2 jobs or your son is raising a teenager with anxiety, they might not have the time or energy to be available 24/7. And while that's frustrating when you need help, it's also an opportunity to expand the circle. Sometimes the best way to get your needs met isn't just from your kids. It's from creating a network around them. Maybe that means hiring a helper for an hour a week. Maybe it means talking to a neighbor or joining a local group for seniors. It might sound small, but even these tiny shifts can ease the load on your children and take pressure off your relationship. Because let's be honest, if the only time you connect with your kids is when there's a problem, that connection will start to feel heavy. But if you're also sharing laughter, light moments, and stories from your day, suddenly those harder conversations don't feel so hard anymore. Don't underestimate the power of joy in your relationship. It builds trust. It softens the serious talks. It reminds them, and you, that love isn't all about logistics. And speaking of logistics, let's talk about being specific. General statements like, "I just feel off lately," or "I need more help," can be confusing. Specifics give clarity. Instead of saying, "I can't do everything I used to," try, "I've noticed that cooking every night wears me out. Would you mind helping me plan some simpler meals? Or could we do one dinner together each week?" That gives your child something they can actually act on. You're not just airing problems, you're offering a clear path forward. But what if the answer is no? That happens sometimes. Maybe they just can't give what you're asking right now. That doesn't mean you give up. It means you pivot. You ask what they think is doable. You look for other routes. You say, "Okay, if that's not possible, let's figure out what is." Flexibility is your best friend in these moments. You're not lowering your standards, you're adapting the plan. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. There's one last thing I want to mention here, and this one might hit home: forgiveness. Sometimes the walls between you and your child aren't made of logistics or misunderstanding. They're made of old hurt. Maybe they snapped at you years ago and never apologized. Maybe you were too hard on them once and never got the chance to say you're sorry. Carrying that stuff into the present makes every conversation heavier. So if there's old baggage, consider opening it up gently. "I know we've had our tough moments, and maybe I didn't always get it right, but I want us to have a strong relationship moving forward. Can we try?" That kind of honesty, it melts walls. Not always right away, but over time, it changes everything. So, you've opened up. You've been clear. You've listened. Maybe the response was warm, or maybe it was cautious. But no matter how the first conversation went, the most important thing is, you showed up for yourself. And that matters more than you realize. Let's be real for a second. Asking for help, admitting you can't do everything you used to, talking about aging, none of it is easy, especially when it's your own kids you're saying it to. There's something deeply humbling about shifting roles when the ones you used to bathe, feed, and guide now have the power to help you. It's vulnerable, yes, but it's also incredibly brave. Now, one of the most powerful things you can do to keep this dialogue going is create a habit of checking in. Not a formal sit-down every month. That would feel like a board meeting, and no one wants that. But little moments, a casual message, a light conversation after dinner, even a voice note. "Hey, just checking in. Doing okay over here, but I could use your advice on something." That kind of casual consistency keeps the line open. It reminds your adult child that this relationship isn't just about needs, it's about connection. You're not nagging, you're nurturing. And while you're nurturing those connections, here's something else to consider. Celebrate the little victories. Maybe your son remembered to stop by after work. Maybe your daughter helped set up your online payments. Maybe your grandchild called just to say hi. These small moments may seem like drops in the ocean, but they add up to a tide of support. Don't brush them off, acknowledge them. "Thank you for doing that. It meant a lot to me." That kind of appreciation has a funny way of encouraging more of the same. Now, let's talk briefly about the emotional roller coaster you might be riding through this whole journey. It's normal to feel a mix of things: gratitude, guilt, pride, sadness. You might have moments where you question if you're being a burden. Please hear this clearly. You are not a burden. You are a human being with needs. Having needs is not weakness. It's part of being alive. The same way you once gave and gave and gave, it's okay now to receive. What's not okay is silencing yourself out of fear, because silence doesn't solve anything. It just builds walls where bridges should be. Now let me share something I've seen again and again. When older adults start these honest conversations, their relationships often grow stronger, not weaker. Stronger. Why? Because these talks invite authenticity. They cut through the surface-level small talk and build real intimacy. And as hard as it may seem at first, it's these deeper, more meaningful connections that bring the most comfort later in life, not just physically, but emotionally. So if you've been waiting for the perfect moment, stop waiting. The perfect moment is the one you create, with kindness, with courage, and yes, and sometimes even with a little trembling in your voice. And if the first attempt feels clumsy, awkward, or doesn't go as planned, try again. You've lived long enough to know that good things often take time. Relationships are no different. This isn't a one-and-done chat, it's an evolving conversation. And with each attempt, you'll get better at it. More confident, more peaceful, and hopefully, more supported. Before we wrap up, let me remind you of something powerful. Your needs are valid. Your voice matters. And your story isn't over. It's just entering a new chapter. One where honesty, dignity, and connection take center stage. So whether you're asking for more help around the house, support with your health, or just a bit more time with the people you love, you're not asking for too much. You're asking for what matters. And that is brave. That is beautiful. If this video resonated with you, take a moment to share your story in the comments. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone. And if you found this helpful, give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting, practical tips on living well after 60. Let's build a space where aging isn't something to hide, but something to honor. Here's to open conversations, growing stronger bonds, and living your truth at any age. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself. You're worth it. As always, don't forget to subscribe to keep the circle growing.